Well, there it is. My life for the next 3 weeks. Signed over to the mast. I think this warrants a tie. Bring out the rum. Nice. Good evening, shipmates, shipwrecks, shitheads, and shitbirds. Welcome to another breathtaking episode of Before the Mast. A show where I show you how to drink like a sailor. Well, like this sailor anyway. And then I share snapshots of my fascinating life. Tonight I'm going to be trying a drink called the Shipwreck, but I'm doing a riff on it, so I'm renaming it the Ship of the Damned. And then instead of the recounting of an actual occurrence from my past, I'm just going to paint a picture in broad strokes of life at sea aboard super ship USS McCampbell DDG-85 Ship of the Damned. This will hopefully give you some context for future stories, which no doubt will take place aboard this ship. I'll do this with all the other ships I served on as well. But being that McCampbell was my last ship and the memories of that ship are still fresh, I figured I'd start here. But first, let's head to the Laka Laka Lounge to loosen up. After hearing about the USS McCampbell, you're gonna need it. How you doing? For tonight's cocktail, you will need dark rum. I'm using Myers because it has a molassesy taste, which is going to go well with one of the mixers. Bourbon. I'm using Jim Beam just because it's a solid, cheap bourbon. And it doesn't taste bad either. Molasses syrup. The recipe for that will be down in the description. Grapefruit juice and orange juice. Are you ready? Because once this ship gets underway, you're not going home. Let's go. Start off with 1.5 ounces of dark rum. One ounce of bourbon. One ounce of grapefruit juice. 1.5 ounces of orange juice. 1/2 ounce of molasses syrup. Give that a shake. Open pour that into this Collins glass here. Garnish with a straw and a half-dead pineapple frond. Why half dead? This is a goddamn Ship of the Damned, people. That's actually pretty good. Like the ship I'm about to tell you about, it has sweet notes and it has very bitter notes. It's probably going to be a challenge to get through, but in the end I'll be happy I drank it. The Myers rum does work well with the molasses syrup, because Myers has a very molassesy taste to it to begin with. Originally I went with 1 ounce of molasses syrup, but I found that that could be cut down to about half an ounce of molasses syrup. Overall, not bad for something I made myself. Try it yourself and let me know what you think down in the comments. Did it suck? Let me know. Was it great? Let me know. Was it so-so? Let me know. Today I'm going to change tack. Nautical term. I realize that many of my stories may be like a play that you've walked into the middle of the second act on, and there's no set on stage. So tonight, I'm going to set the stage and tell you about my last ship. That tin can, that fighting hunk of steel, that formidable hellscape of despair and misery, the vessel we loved to hate and hated that we loved. Supership USS McCampbell DDG-85, Ship of the Damned. A vessel full of lamentable seamen. A repository for the downtrodden. It's where they sent those who were not fortunate enough to get San Diego, but were not unfortunate enough to get stationed in Norfolk. Yes, McCampbell. Pride of the 7th Fleet. Before I tell you about this ship and her crew, in essence her soul, let me tell you about her namesake. David McCampbell, that's Captain David McCampbell to you, was one of the most decorated naval aces of World War II. He received the Medal of Honor for his actions as the commanding officer of the F-15. He shot down 9 enemy aircraft in a single mission at the beginning of the Battle of Leyte Gulf in 1944. He was an amazing man, and by all accounts, an outstanding leader. I actually had the great honor of drawing a ship's portrait for his nephew and namesake, David McCampbell II. I said all that so I could tell you that whenever it sounds like I might be disparaging the name of McCampbell, I'm not. If anyone who never served a lick on that ship was to talk shit about her, it could come to blows. Only those of us who have had the unfortunate privilege of being McCampbell crew members have earned the right to talk shit. And then, when shit is being talked, it's just the symptom of an illness known to landsmen as being a sailor. And it's important that you know that a complaining sailor is a happy sailor. I once told this to an Army officer on my first combat tour, a mantra which he humorlessly dismissed with, "I've never subscribed to that theory." Well, you wouldn't, sir, would you? It's a sailor saying, not a soldier saying. Least fun guy in the bar, that guy. It's true, though. A sailor will find any reason to complain. Give a sailor a scoop of macaroni and fuck it at mid-rats, he'll complain about how shitty the food is. Tomorrow you give that same sailor steak and lobster, and he'll complain about how that means he's about to get screwed. You give a sailor ice cream and he'll complain about how he can't eat it because he's busy doing work. Give a sailor extra money and they'll complain about how they have to spend it on expensive uniforms. Keep a sailor out at sea for 2 months and they'll complain about how long it's been since they've had a drink. Give that sailor a beer and he'll complain about how it's because he's been out to sea for 2 months straight. See, at sea, there is always a complaint to be made, and there is always an unsympathetic ear for it to bounce right off of. Super ship USS McCampbell DDG-85 Ship of the Damned exemplified this. No matter what, the haze is always grayer on the other ship. The water is always bluer in the other sea. The skipper is always nicer in the other pilot house. And that's the mindset of the sailor. But then, it's also a mindset molded by experience. When I first arrived, I was part of the advanced crew from USS Gary. You can hear that story on episode 2, The Aviation and Why I Hate Flying. The skipper was a guy named Macbeth. Commander Macbeth was probably the nicest, most caring skipper I've ever served under. When we got to the ship, he took us all into the ship's library and put a question to us. What is the most important thing here? I'm old school. In boot camp, they literally beat into us the order of precedence. God, country, ship, shipmate, family, self. That's how it went. So that's what I went with. I raised my hand and proclaimed, "The ship is the most important thing, sir." Commander Macbeth knew his audience, and he was happy that he knew us. He pointed at me and said, "Wrong." I sat there sheepishly like I had an anchor chain wrapped around my neck. What did I forget? But then he smiled. He smiled and said, You are the most important asset on this ship." Well, I was taken aback by this nautical heresy. He went on to say how it takes each and every one of us to crew this ship. How if one of us is having unresolved issues or problems, it can affect everyone. Our emotional and physical well-being were paramount to the mission. I'm not sure I believed him. Was it a trap? A ruse? Was he some kind of huckster out to pull a fast one and see how far he could get? Or was he for real? Well, I'd never know. I'd never find out. See, within 2 weeks, Commander Macbeth was gone, replaced by Commander Triplet, who had an entirely different style of leadership. And you may find this to be a recurring theme my life story. Not that that made Commander Triplet any less or more than Commander Macbeth, mind you. His command philosophy was just different. But then Commander Macbeth didn't have to command a destroyer in the 7th Fleet. So who knows how his philosophy would have changed or adapted under that kind of pressure. See, 7th Fleet is probably the hardest worked, the toughest run, the strictest managed, and the least rested fleet in the United States Navy. As soon as McCampbell was moved to Yokosuka, where she would be run ragged, Big Navy, in all of their infinite wisdom, decided to pull a prank called optimal manning. In essence, McCampbell went from being crewed by 325 sailors to being crewed by 215 sailors. Give or take a broken foot. The Navy wanted to use the McCampbell and the 7th Fleet in general as a test bed to prove that modern destroyers do more with less. People, at least. So I guess they really showed Commander Macbeth, who tried to tell us that the ship needed all of us to function. The Navy said no. So here we are, undermanned, optimally manned, while at the same time doing more. See, while ships home ported stateside had a relatively stable schedule that they adhered to, workups, training, deployment, and then a short rest, and then you start over again. 7th Fleet ships had no such schedule. Kim Jong-un called his dead aunt's boyfriend's hamster's mama a bitch. You're getting underway. Clouds in the sky? Underway. Commodore, tired of looking out his office window and seeing so many goddamn ships in port? Underway. In Yokosuka, it doesn't matter if you were on a DDG or a CG. You were all on FFGs. Forever fucking gone. I think the longest stretch in port that I ever had while I was in Yokosuka was 38 days. And that was during the holidays. And that was the environment we were in. Because these ships were tasked with more missions, more underway time, and given less manning, less time in the yards for repairs, and less time at home for sailors' general well-being. Well, you could try to imagine the stress. But I assure you, you would still be well short of the mark. The only experience more stressful that I ever went through was combat in the Army. On average, during my time as LPO of the finest deck department to ever grace the raging main, I think I got about 2 to 3 hours of sleep at night. If I was lucky, I got a 10 or 20 minute nap in between evolutions on the deck of the windlass room. But in the end, a constant state of exhaustion was normal. And there was a lot of hate leveled at the command structure. I think a lot of that bad morale might have just been straight fatigue. And with the benefit of hindsight, you see that the command was dealing with that same stress squared. But there were indeed things about the McCampbell command structure that really fouled my anchors. See, I could get over constant deployments and constant missions. That was the job. I could get over the lack of sleep. That was the environment. I could even get over the shitty attitudes. I had one myself, and it was driven by circumstances. What I could not get over was this. What I called cliche leadership. See, that's where some officer, senior enlisted person, would come up to you and tell you to do something that they knew was probably not possible. Then, when despite you trying to move heaven and earth to make it happen, it proved quite literally impossible, well, then to absolve themselves of responsibility of failure, they would throw a cliche at you, like David throwing a rock at the Goliath of defeat. An example would be when the ship pulled in for one day, and instead of going home to see the wife and kids for that one day, well, they needed me to paint the port side of the ship. I think we were going to Busan or something for some sort of view. I don't know. Well, while that sucks, such was the military. But there was just one problem. It was raining. And I don't care if you're God's gift to bosun mates. I don't care if you are the potentate of paint. You will not paint in the rain. So here comes this officer in civilian clothes, heading home or somewhere better, obviously. And he sees me standing on the pier with a bucket of paint, but not working. And he comes over and says, "Boats, why aren't you painting the sides?" I tried to say in the least condescending tone possible, "It's raining, sir." His reply, "Results, not excuses." And then he popped open his umbrella and walked away. I wish I was making that up, but I'm not. Another thing, the Navy requires maintenance to be done on a strict schedule with strict guidelines as far as tools and parts. Some of these things had to be done in port, and if you weren't in port, which we rarely were, it couldn't be done. At least not on time. Some tools and equipment were notoriously hard to get when you were stationed in Japan. So in order to make miracles happen, good sailors would have to adapt and overcome. But then, if the schedule or these guidelines were deviated from, it was called gun decking. That would be cause for getting sent up before the mast. So work center supervisors and LPOs were literally between the devil and the deep blue sea on this. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. The Navy made sure you were damned either way, and thereby hangs a tale. But that's a story for a different episode. You know, the only ship that was immune to all the damnation was the USS Blue Ridge. Those assholes. Oh, those guys were over there enjoying chocolate waterfalls and orgies with models. This was the McCampbell, our little corner in a sleepless hell space called the 7th Fleet. Cheers to all my McCampbell shipmates. It was a hard life, but you're all family now. From the highest up to the lowest down, your brothers and sisters. Cheers. At the time this episode drops on YouTube, I will have begun my journey to the Lady Washington. I'll be out at sea for about 3 weeks. So before the mast, we'll be taking a brief hiatus. When I return, I hopefully will have many new stories, new videos to share with you. But I do need your help. In these unprecedented times, traveling is expensive business. In this economy, art is an expensive business. Any donations are appreciated. You can find the link to my GoFundMe in the description and in the comments. Cheers. I'll see y'all in a few weeks. Probably a little saltier and a little more sunburned than before. Until then, here's a safety brief. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And brother, that's a wide latitude.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. Early in the morning, putting in the longboat until he's sober, putting in the longboat until he's sober, putting in the longboat until he's sober. Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises.
Like waiting for Heinz ketchup. Oh, sorry, that was me. Oh, Bob Saget.